to episode number 8 of Frenemies, the podcast where sales and marketing talk. As always, I'm Julia and I stand for marketing, and I'm talking to.
Ahmed, and I am here for sales.
Yes, and today on this episode, we would like to go back to the early beginnings and talk about how we ended up here, how we ended up in sales and in marketing, and what brought us here.
Exactly. It's like the beginning of our story. It's like the first time we met sales by ourselves. And, it's like I also, I was curious. I came up with the topic. So I was curious about Julia's story because I guess I can never understand why someone wants to enter marketing.
Well, actually, you're gonna love my story of my first job then, because my first job I was at a startup here in Copenhagen, a country manager for the German market, which actually meant that I had to do both sales and marketing.
Oh,
So I onboarded partners and I did negotiations and I was at conferences and, presenting the company and trying to get new partners on board. And that is actually how I realized that sales is not my thing.
actually, it's like the thing that you done. It's actually in the 90s, even early 20s, companies, it's like the sales and marketing was one unite thing. Actually, there was no too much difference. Marketing people does the sales at the same time. So yeah, it's understandable. And doing everything at the beginning of a startup, oh, it should be exciting doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing learning curve. Also, of course, at a startup, I got very early on to be more creative and figure out like what works here, and while learning everything about digital marketing. And I really loved starting out like with the digital part and being so focused on on digital marketing, which at that time wasn't that normal. I mean, we're talking like 12 years back, where a lot of
Yeah,
companies were still talking like print and
yeah.
out of home and stuff. But also an important thing to mention is that it was B2C, so up to like 3 years ago, I always worked in B2C companies and doing B2C marketing. So it's only in
Oh,
the last 3 years that I actually made the shift towards B2B. But yeah, it's I really loved that first experience, learning so much and actually doing both sales and marketing, which gave me a good foundation. And also, even though you might not agree with that, a lot of respect for sales. But I
yeah.
noticed that sales just brings me out of my comfort zone a lot, and it's just not what I want to do on a day to day basis. I
Exactly.
like, yeah, yeah. I get sweaty hands just talking about it.
But how did you decide? For example, so how did you decide? Let's say, hey, I need to go to, it's like to that direction, sales and marketing direction. It's like, how did you, the first path, how did you decide to go that way? So you could be something else. There's too many jobs out there.
Okay, so I mean, so originally, when I was in school, I wanted to become a psychologist. But in Germany, to study psychology, you need very, very good grades. And I had
I
good
know.
grades, but I didn't have very, very good grades. So I applied and I didn't get into the study program. And then I took an apprenticeship in tourism, because I love tourism, I love traveling, and it's obviously a job where you are very extroverted and get to be with people, which is something that is very much up my alley. And in that, I learned the first time about marketing and what marketing is, and I loved it. So
Yeah,
then I was like, well, actually marketing is a lot of psychology. And it is, because it is about figuring out what people react to, how to communicate with
exactly.
people, talking buyer personas. I mean, that's very much kind of psychological work on what.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what do these people have in common? What do they react to? What do we need to communicate? So that's basically, so around like when I was 18, 19, I landed on, I think marketing is what I need to do. And then, I studied economics and did a master's actually also in tourism and management. And then, went into marketing and kind of never looked back. And I am, but just want to
Nice,
say that I'm
nice.
very happy with my choice to the day.
Then you start crying, I don't want to be in marketing, I still want to be a psychologist, with no targets except just listen to people and earn money from it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So instead of making the world a healthier place, I now make sure that companies earn money.
Yeah, it's like you're serving the evil capitalism, it's like in a sense that it's like that everyone you trick into people's minds and make them buy more. And I didn't, I was like, no, you were in B2C side. So it's then it's more evil because then it comes to more psychological stuff to, just like get into people's heads and it's like, hey, you have to buy this product or take this tourism package to go to Turkey, yeah, and meet Ahmed.
So,
Wow.
how about you? What is your story, Ahmed?
Ye- Yeah, what is my story? It's like I studied international relations and political sciences. I was always interested in history and stuff, also in Germany for when I stayed there for 3 years. And my father worked for the Turkish consulate there in Münster. And it's like when I saw the diplomacy, it's like the courtesy that I have, it's like, hey, I just want to be part of it. And I just then I when we got back to Turkey, when we went back to Turkey, I decided to, hey, I want to study international relations, political sciences because I love history, I love everything, and went directly into it. And throughout these 4 years, I just realized, it's like university years are like, you are discovering yourself. So you're beginning to discover yourself. You cannot say, say, I discovered myself fully and I'm all set. So at the end of those years, I realized that working for government is a boring stuff. It's like because everything is set up, it's like you cannot change anything actually. It's like everything is set. Your career path is set. And when you met a bad manager, and bad managers are everywhere, you cannot change it. You have to obey him. In those sense, you obey to bad managers in government work. So I said, fuck off. So I just then I started looking after for several fields, and especially international sales, international trade, was my thing because I knew two languages, and we have, Turkey has strong trade relationships with Germany, it's like the DACH region and Europe in general. And I said, hey, I want to get into a company to learn that stuff. So, but I had no experience before, and that didn't do any, it's like apprenticeship or anything about that. And I started looking for jobs. So, I was like, hey, which sector? Then I wanted to go into a small company. I didn't know about, startups then because, Turkey has then didn't have any startup ecosystem like now. And I just wanted to go into a small company that I can learn everything. Because in a big company, I could work for Mercedes, for example. I had some offers from Mercedes, but I would have only just, small portion of duties that I have to do. And, it's like you're just like a normal worker, it's like you don't learn too much in a big company. And there is too much bureaucracy. It's actually same as the working for the government, for my in my opinion. So and then so I found the company that's in medical, especially in medical trade. So I love to because medical is a it's like there is nothing that can affect medical business because it's like there's always health issues everywhere, and people buy every time, even in the economic recession, anything can affect medical business. So I just said, okay, medical disposables, this stuff I want to get in. Then so I just and the other problem with the small businesses is you don't learn anything about sales, selling stuff. So I just, I was also interested in psychology, philosophy, and being in Istanbul has also given me a great advantage because I met with, people from various cultures here in Istanbul, especially I was like, when I studied here, because I had so much time, then I could use to get to know other people. Then I just get into it, but I didn't know what to do, so I just started researching about what I can do, how I can sell. What is the good email is looking like? Anything similar like this stuff. So this is then I just ended up in going through different companies, and it's like tech companies, and
But
stay in sales
how did
for.
you end up deciding to go for sales?
Because why sales? Because everyone is afraid of sales first. It's like, because sales, it's like, so you're calling people, strange people. Every one of my friends, when I said, say, hey, I decided I will be go with the international trades sales side, in the sales side, they were like, "Mm, okay," it's like, isn't a little bit hard, so of course it's hard, but it's more rewarding. You learn much more thing. You can connect with more people. My strong suit was always I can build connections, and I'm a networker. I'm a connector. So I needed a place to use those skills. So there were two ways. So one is diplomacy. I could be a diplomat for the Turkish government, and or sales. So it's like sales was my choice. So that's why I go to that path.
And I think as the last episodes, we talked a lot about what we don't like, about the department, or yeah, our area we work in. Let's just actually talk about, so what do you love about sales?
Yeah, what I love about sales is just it's not boring. Okay, it can't get boring if you don't, if you do your job properly. Of course, it's like if you just send, generic emails, or just like do some generic stuff by control C control V stuff, and so copy and paste stuff, it's boring. But if you see it as a challenge, and the if you are as curious as me, it's like, if you're a curious cat like me, it's like there's always something to learn. It's like I'm constantly learning something new, even every day. Believe me, every day. I'm not, there's no day that I, surpass with, no new knowledge. So there's always something. Hey, actually, there's this tool, or there's this method, or there's this kind of messaging. I can use this, or I can use that. It's like, also even some local stuff. So so local news that I cannot discover on, just looking at the news, actually, because I met with local people all around the world. I can learn how the company insights are. It's like, what are they are heading to. It's like, I know the issues in some companies. I know companies that sell, the cybersecurity companies that sell their clients' data to other companies. It's like, I know that, but I cannot say it. I cannot share it because it's also, the company is really, it's like really big. So it's like, it could be dangerous for my own health as well. So it's like, it's just excitement. It's like, everything. And I love being informed. Having information flow for everywhere. So it's just like, actually, I'm doing international relations stuff. So still, it's like, I know, it's like, hey, there's something like, I know how bad the UK government governed their country, for example. It's like, how is the restrictions are, how is the economy in every country. I know that. So this is what I love about sales. What about you? What do you like about marketing?
Before I dive into that, I think one thing that is really interesting, because now that we talk about our backgrounds and what we originally studied, it's interesting to see that both of us studied kind of something different and where we ended up, but it relates like very well to what we do. So I mean, even though you studied relations, I mean, what you actually do in the everyday is still building relations. and doing exactly that. And that's kind of the same for me, with the psychology part, because marketing to the day is still a lot about that. I think it's also nice to say that there are different ways that lead to where you end up, and it's still, all very much connected and helpful. But what I love about marketing, funnily enough, I think is a lot what you love about sales as well. I'm the kind of like personality, I couldn't have a job where I do the same thing every day. And that's exactly what it is in marketing as well. I mean, not one day looks like the other. There's always seasonality. There's always different things going on. And I mean, for me, I've always been a marketing generalist. I always worked with all of the channels, and seeing the connections between activities, between channels, and that is just what I'm really, really good at. And I love that, because you can one day sit and analyze data, and the next day you're super creative, and you're brainstorming, I don't know, messaging or a new campaign. So I love that it connects all of these parts, and it's exactly as you say, this learning. That's also what I experience in my job, that it's just a constant learning, and you always like get better at things. You always figure out what works, what doesn't work, what you can do more in, and at the end of the day also just the creativity, because in everything you do you need to be creative. I mean, I think there is no market these days that is like owned by just one player, and there's way more information sharing, as we talked about before. Things get easily copied, or everybody uses the same method. So I just love that to whatever you do, you need to be creative and constantly think out of the box for things to actually have impact, and for you to be more successful as a company, in your marketing, in your sales,
Hmm.
than the other players.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's like this is the excitement. It's like, because other than that, if my job would be boring, I wouldn't work. It's like, so let's say, I have no offense, but it's like accounting. It's like the numbers. All the time, it's the same thing every day. So it's like, for me, it's a nightmare
But
for
it's
for
different
myself. It's
numbers
like,
every day.
yeah, it's like instead of one, it's two. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's a new
There
row
are
in a
tons of
spreadsheet.
combination of numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a new row in a spreadsheet every single day.
Yeah, you know me. You got this. You got this. Yeah, exactly. So, this is one thing. I'm a relationship builder. So, and I was like, I'm on the right place to do it. So, even it's like I build a relationship with it's like with a person like you from marketing. It's like I'm that good. Normally, I
I love
wouldn't
how
do
you
it.
leave me out of this equation as if I wasn't a part of this. That is such a sales thing to say of you. I made
Yeah,
this.
yeah, of
And
course.
then marketing is here. It's like, but I was here too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like this is the fun thing about it. It's like, and throughout the years, actually, you can also, and it's like I'm always comparing myself, from my previous versions. So it's like we need to update ourselves. So when I say, it's like how I look at things, even 1 year ago, it's like it's a huge change. And while I'm networking with people, I got to say sometimes, it's like, hey, how long have you been in sales? And I said, it's like, it's 7 years, almost, it's almost 8 years. He said, you sound like you are in sales for 40 years. I give some ideas. I'm not saying, so because, oh, I'm so great. The thing is, because I talk with so many people, most of the times in all times, it's like when someone gains experience just from one source, it's like the people who just work in one company, they earn experience from there, or they just work for 2 3 companies, they just earn experience from there. But what we can do today is just we can learn everywhere, it's like from everyone. And with that, it creates an actually cumulative experience with that. It's like, just like, that's why I sometimes I say, hey, I have over 100 years of experience in sales because I talk with so many people that have so many years of experience in different companies, in different, ICPs, different personas who sold to different personas, etc. So this is why we love sales and marketing.
I mean,
Tiny bit, not much. Tiny bit, so tiny bit marketing.
one thing I find very exciting about marketing that I could see changing over the past 12 years is when I started. And obviously, there's also a B2C, B2B like comparison thing. But when I started, kind of, marketing was marketing and kind of detached from the other departments. There was like product going on and sales doing their
Yeah.
thing, and you have like support and so on. But marketing was kind of standing on their own, doing their own thing. And over the years, like, marketing became so close to all of the other departments, and all of a sudden it's exactly as you say. Like, I mean, in marketing you collaborate with so many other teams, and you have to be effective and to have an impact. You need to collaborate in alignment with sales, with product, with customer success, with all of these departments. And it's something that I really love because it makes our work so much stronger, and what you can do and the potential. But it also increases your learning so much, then
Yeah.
if you're just sitting there and developing this and developing that, and oh, okay, and now we come out with this. And it's something that really also excites me about the future of marketing, of this being the new norm, that we work together and collaborate with the other departments.
Yeah, this is actually one of the problems of Western philosophy. Actually, it's a philosophy. It's like you create in old times there was just it's like the old, let's say, ancient Greek philosophy in just one area covers everything. So it covers it's like science, it's like data science, everything, every possible stuff under one umbrella. But in time, they started to create some sub expertise areas, and it became too much in these days. Like also in it's like in corporate management stuff. So you have too many tiny managers managing managing managers, and it's like at the end no one is expert in anything. They all say, "Hey, I'm an expert in digital marketing stuff in SEO." It's like I'm just specifically expert in that. But it's like you have to know the human psychology, in order to understand those stuff too. You have to be also a generalist as well. But right now, I have not just you are just some particular stuff in your area, and I think it's a big mistake that we are now making. We are now shifting towards the other thing. It's like, hey, you have to know several stuff. You have to understand what marketing does. Also for us salespeople, it's like, hey, we know we have to know what marketing does, what product team does. It's like what are our company plans for the future. Before we just it's like just do the calls, just book meetings, just close deals, don't have any clue about other stuff. It's at the end it destructures a company structure actually, and at the end you fail at the end because you become too big to manage. Like, it's like we see all the layoffs, in the big companies. Because why? They have too many stuff for everything. Every piece of management, it's like we have something for partners. I don't know, cross-sell management manager. Dude, it's just partners, it's like they have to stick with the first guy they met because they need to, have a constant relationship with those guys. Also for salespeople, you just book the meeting. So what? It's like you just say goodbye. But if you make the good first impression, you can keep it that salesperson in a long time. And it's like I believe that customer churn will be much much less. With that, it's like long term because people also are attached, emotionally attached to the products that they buy. So and the people behind those products. So this is some other stuff that we need to it's like that are changing right now. So so everyone says more loudly, hey, it's like sales and marketing should work together. Product also, it's like everyone. everyone. It should be more unique environment that we work collaboratively. We have all the tools, actually, all the necessary tools. I'm not talking about unnecessary tools. We have all the tools, so we have to work together on that to make our companies more successful.
But now that we have a few minutes left, and you talked about us, should we talk about how we actually met and how this podcast got started?
Yeah, we can actually. It's like I was the first guy. It's like I never did a networking session with a marketing person, let's say. And it's like I saw Julia's profile. Okay, company seems nice, so let's arrange a meeting. I just sent you a voice message or video message. Let me check. I need to check live here what I sent to Julia Hartwig first. Wait a minute. What was my first message? What I wrote, a quote unquote. Thanks, Julia, for commenting to help Henrik. I made a
Yep.
post. You just comment on it and ask her about my upcoming initiative, sales strategy. I get opinions from different people from various positions. I would love to get your feedback as well. Let me know when I can help. So then I put my calendar link down here. Then we met.
And I
Yeah.
want to say that I actually, answered you because you reached out in a very nice way, but also I actually said yes to the meeting because you were very respectful in that process. Like, you actually first checked and then you actually wrote a message. Can I share my Calendly to set up a session with you instead of, just sending it over? And that was actually why. So, you are a very good seller. Else I wouldn't have agreed, quite honestly. But yeah, so we had that, we
I'm a,
had that
I'm a
call.
gentleman sales professional. So what should I say?
But yeah, so we had that call, and Ahmed had told me about sales fellowship, and we had a really good conversation about sales and marketing and demand generation and all sorts of things. And we kind of left it at that, and then I got the idea for the podcast. And a few days thinking about it and thinking, okay, he's gonna think I'm crazy. I wrote you and asked you if you were up for this, and you said yes. And so now we're here,
Yeah.
8 episodes in, still talking about sales and marketing and having a lot of fun doing that.
So it's also, so I'm always open to crazy ideas. So when someone, it's like someone like, it's like marketing sales, it's like talking about this stuff, I just thought about, okay, maybe it could be fun. It's like I can, because I'm in sales. So, it's like I have always something to talk about. This is always, everyone asks me, for example, do you have a content strategy or, do you plan your posts? No, so when something comes up, there's always coming up with new stuff, new people, new ideas, and I just post about it. I don't have anything to,
Obviously,
say,
as the
hey,
as
I
the
need to.
marketing person, that makes me cry. So let's not talk about this.
Actually, we got our first comment on a YouTube video in our episode 5, fuck up episode.
Yes.
Did you see
No,
that?
but read it out loud to us right now. Let's look at
Wait a minute.
let's look at comment number one and celebrate it, and then ask all of you that are listening right now to give us reviews or leave comments on wherever you're listening to us or watching this, because we want more people to listen to us and get marketing and sales to be closer together.
Yes, so the comment comes from the Sandlond Chronicles. Love this. In order to improve at anything, we need to take honest inventory of our actions, both good and bad. As a fellow sober salesman, we both understand that you can't get sober without first admitting that you have a problem. And I just replied, exactly, man. I always thank you for your comment. I'm so happy. I just saw the comment and just said,
Yes,
someone listens to us.
a round of applause for the first comment. We're very happy you commented. And yeah, as I said, please, the rest of you, comment, give us reviews, go nuts. We are young and we need it.
Yeah, it motivates me, motivates us. But for sales, I need more motivation because I have targets for this podcast. Okay, Julia set me targets for the podcast, so I need to find new listeners. So every month, but I need to create an inbound channel as well.
No,
So inbound channel is you guys.
you already see this wrong. No, no. In this analogy, I bring the listeners, but you have to bring the subscribers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and with these words, I think you got a good intro to who we actually are and how we ended up in sales and marketing, which both of us are still very passionate about. We truly love what we do, and that's why we're going to show up here next week again to discuss some more.